Hey, Polly.
Hey Greg, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Got another great one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One day will you say, "Oh, we got a bad one this week"?
I don't know, but I bet the guest would be very upset.
So not a bad one this week, a
Not
great one this week.
got a great one. And it's with Ruler. I don't know if you remember Ruler. We met them at the Rhode Island Healthy Breakfast.
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
So today we have Jessica Hoffman. She's the director of research at Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence. So she's
All
going to
right.
tell us all about the Ruler approach.
All right. Can't wait to find out about it.
Yeah, me either. So without further ado, joining us today on Totally Preventable, we have Jessica Hoffman, the Director of Research at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence and Assistant Professor of the Yale Child Study Center. Jessica, how are you doing today?
I am doing great. How about you?
Doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. Thank you
Good.
so much for joining us. And to
Yeah, thank
start,
you for having me.
oh, to start off like we normally do, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today?
Sure. So I'm Jessica. I have been at the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence for 12 years now. I started in 2013. Before that, I was a clinical psychologist, as an adolescent and family therapist. And I'm a mom of three. I have a 10-year-old boy, 6-year-old boy, and 1-year-old daughter. So lots going on over here.
See, absolutely.
I saw something colorful in the back, and I was like, "Oh, kids, kids."
Yeah.
Sitting in a messy room. Yep.
No, I didn't think it was messy at all. But then I was like, "Oh, I see some bright colors." So
There is an art table behind me. Yes, I'm.
okay, all right, all right. Can you explain what the ruler approach is and how it supports the development of emotional intelligence in schools?
Yeah, so the Ruler approach is a professional development program for educators, preschool through high school, and then a curriculum for the students that builds the skills of emotional intelligence. So Ruler is an acronym for those skills that we're trying to build, which is recognizing emotions in yourself and others, understanding the causes and consequences of emotions, being able to label your emotions with a large and nuanced vocabulary, expressing your emotions in intentional ways that forward you towards your goals, and then, of course, regulating your emotions with helpful strategies. We work with about 5,000 schools in the US and in 33 countries. Um, and it's all based on the theory of emotional intelligence, which started with Peter Salovey, the former president of Yale University, and his colleague Jack Mayer at the University of New Hampshire, which really just said that emotions are information that we can use to our benefit, right? We used to kind of think that emotions make you irrational or illogical. Modern emotion science really says that that's not the case. Emotions are data about the world, and we can use them to enhance our relationships, enhance our attention, memory, and learning, enhance our quality of life if we have this set of skills that we call emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
Now, I know you said, excuse me, I know you said you have 5,000, schools in the study. Do you have your own case study at home or do you turn off when you get to home? Because you
Oh,
said,
I use this stuff at home all the time. Yeah, yeah. I mean, my husband is like, don't you go psycho mumbo jumbo with me. But oh no, the skills apply at home for sure. And we hear that from our educators too, right? They're learning it in the context of professional development. But once you start to be able to tell the difference between when you're frustrated and when you're angry, or when you're tired and when you're overwhelmed, that's going to feed it, that's going to benefit your personal life as well. So I hope that I'm building a good emotion vocabulary in my kids and that I model regulation. I mean, none of us succeed all of the time, but
yeah.
I hope I'm doing that at home.
Well, how great to learn it from a young age too. Um, I just know it's hard at my age to learn new things as much as I try, like it takes a lot of repetition, but kids catch on so quickly to things.
Yeah, I think that kids, I mean, we can all learn the skills of emotional intelligence. This is something we can all get better at. So keep trying because it is doable. And anything new that we learn takes practice. So even with students, right, it's not something that we can explain once and then we're good at it. Everything takes practice and trial and error. But I do think that young kids start out feeling their feelings, and we as adults have to be careful that we're not socializing them to, not do that, right? What are we teaching them about that it's okay, right? They have permission to feel what they're feeling and be validated, and then have skills to handle it and move forward.
Awesome. Now, research indicates that emotions influence various aspects of our lives, including attention, decision-making, and relationships. How does Ruler address these influences within the school environment?
Yeah, so it's really at our core, right? Is this idea we have a tagline at the center, emotions matter, or all emotions matter, sometimes we say, because we don't say there's good or bad feelings. All the feelings are information.
Mhm.
And what we try to do is translate that bit of science that emotions are impacting your attention, memory, and learning, your decision making, your relationships. They're doing that all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. So let's be aware of it and then harness it to our advantage. So we can think about in the classroom, we want students who feel passionate and interested and engaged, and how that's going to enhance their ability to attend, to remember the information, and therefore to learn, but also to acknowledge that when our students are feeling something like anxiety, right, and uncertainty about the future, that it's hard for them to pay attention and learn. And so if we can realize that a student is coming in feeling anxious or a student is coming in feeling sad, then we can help them move to a more helpful space to be in so that they can then engage with us in class. And again, kind of going back to that, we used to try to say like, oh, just leave your feelings at the door. We know that doesn't work. So instead, can we validate where the student is right now and then work with them on, is this helpful or is this not helpful for the activity we're about to do? And if it's not helpful, how can I help you shift? What strategies can we use to help shift you to a place where you will be able to engage in the content and therefore benefit from it like your peers are? The same is true when we think about something like decision making. Some decisions are kind of purely logical, right? Like, can I afford this, right? Or we have to go to the gas station, right? And some decisions can be like all emotion, but most things are both, right? I mean, even when I talk like this, that's not how our brains work. Our brains have thoughts and they have feelings and they're not separate and, they're all in the same place. And so how can we bring our emotions into our decision making, right? So that we are listening to them. I work with the high school students a lot. I'll give you an example. And when we talk about their post-secondary options, there are kind of more fully logic-based parts of that decision, right? What colleges, are you maybe going to get into, or what kind of job do you want to have? But there are feeling parts that matter just as much. Do you want to be close to home, right? Did you stand on campus and it just felt like a place you could live? I mean, those aren't to be ignored, right?
Mhm.
So we talk with our students about how to balance the two so that we make decisions that are in our best interests. Another one around decision making, people tend to not be very good at what we call emotion forecasting, which is imagining how they'll feel in the future when a thing happens, right? So after I get in there, then I'll be happy. Or after this happens to me, right? Or if that happened, I would be devastated forever. And usually that's not the case. And so
Mhm.
helping people kind of raise their self-awareness around um, making decisions not based on this forecast that's likely faulty.
Mhm.
I've never thought about that. Like the college example really just hit home. I never thought about that as being an emotional decision if you want to be closer to home, or I don't know why I never thought that, but I just never, but now you just put it all in perspective for me. Thank you.
And
Of course. Yeah.
And whether you have to stop at the gas station or not is purely an emotional decision for me. It doesn't matter how many miles I have left. If I am not in the mood or it is too cold or too hot, I will squeak out every last mile.
Oh, I hear you. It's not an emotional decision for me either because I wait till it says 0. So then there's just no choice. It's not a decision at all.
The decision on how fast, whether you call AAA or your
There's
husband.
a series of bad decisions that led up to.
Right. Yeah. Why didn't I just stop yesterday when the sun was shining? Yeah. How do you involve families and home life with this? Because I know we see this a lot in substance abuse prevention. It doesn't matter how much you teach the kids at school, often things at home are affecting these kids. So families need to have this information as well. What resources do you have for them?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I just want to say first that families and parents and caregivers are students' first teachers,
Mm.
right? And they're primary teachers and the first ones that do any kind of what we call emotion socialization, if we're going to stick to emotions and feelings space. I mean, along with everything else, right? Teaching colors and shapes and how to count. And there are our first and our primary teachers. And so in the school space, we can bring in these social and emotional components because they are part of how we're going to help students succeed academically, but it's always got to be in partnership with the families. So I just want to say that because sometimes there's a fear among the families that schools are taking over something they really see as their responsibility. And we think it's all the adults in a kid's life responsibility, but always in partnership with the parents and the families and those caregivers. So Ruler has a set of resources that we can share with families. We have, it varies by school what they use, but at a minimum, we have information sheets and letters from the principal and pieces that can go into any kind of, monthly newsletter or weekly newsletter that goes home, explaining what's been going on. Hey, this week we talked about the feeling word isolated. Here's what we talked about. Here's what we shared. Here's the art project that we did, right? Or here's the book that we read, so that families are always feeling like they're in communication about what was done. Usually that leads to families saying, hey, this is great. What can we do at home? And then we've got more resources. One of our tools is called the Charter. At school, it asks 2 questions. How do we want to feel in this classroom? And what can we all do to help each other feel that way? And the students will put it together, right? They want to feel valued, respected, safe. And here are the things we can do for each other to feel that way. Families can build a family charter at home, but how we all want to feel when we're at home and what we can do to help each other feel that way. So we see a lot of family charters. Families share those back with us. The mood meter is one of our other tools, right? It's got 2 axes. The vertical, the y-axis is how much energy you have in your body from low to high. The X or horizontal axis is pleasantness, right? You're feeling very pleasant or feeling very unpleasant. And when you cross them, you get 4 quadrants that make up our mood meter. So you might be high energy and pleasant, something like joyful or excited. You might be low energy and pleasant, something like calm or content. You might be low energy, unpleasant. That's where we see things like bored or sad. Or you might be high energy, unpleasant. That's kind of usually both angry, kind of family of words, and also anxiety and fear live over there, right? And this is a tool that we use at schools to kind of help understand where the students are, either, when they come in the morning or before a test. It's a way that people can communicate where they're at, and then receive help if they need it. And we see families use mood meters at home too. They put them on the fridge. Everybody checks in the morning or checks in after school and work. And it's just a way to kind of say, hey, here's where I am right now. And to start to build that vocabulary we talked about before.
We need to put that chart up somewhere.
Yeah,
Have
we need it
everyone
bad.
check in the morning.
Yeah, we have one. We have one at the Center for Emotional Intelligence. We have a big mood meter and we have little magnets. We have about 37 employees right now. Everybody's got one with their face on it. And when you come in, you plot yourself, and then you can get a sense of who's where.
Who to stay away from?
Exactly. Who to stay away, who you're not going to ask an extra favor of today. No.
Yeah.
But sometimes it is that, but also it can be that's whose door you knock on and say, hey, do you need anything? And they may say no, right? What they need
Right.
today is not to interact. Or maybe what they do need is they did need someone to just come say, hey, how you doing? What's going on? Is there anything I can do for you? So that's kind of our shorthand way.
I love that.
So I was going to ask about the mood meter, but you just answered that. But what is a meta moment?
A meta moment's another one of our tools. It is for handling big feelings that tend to hijack us and hijack that decision making and lead to behaviors or reactions that we then regret later. So the meta moment is a 4-step process for handling those big feelings so that we can feel good about how we behaved at the end of the day. Step 1 is pausing, right? Taking a pause. Sometimes, with the younger kids, we teach them how to, just count to 10, take a minute or take 3 deep breaths, do something to create a space between the thing that happened and what you're going to do next. It doesn't have to be a very long space, but just a little space, right? So now we're going to respond instead of react. Then we ask you to picture your best self. This is a concept that's based in basically thinking about what are your values? Who do you want to be? What do you want your reputation to be, right? When you're not there, how do you want other people to kind of talk and think about you, right? Someone who's dependable, someone who's kind. And what are your goals, right? Longer term goals. What are your goals here? And once something happens, you pause, you picture this best self, then you strategize and then figure out how to respond, right? Strategize and act.
Mhm.
Hopefully what it does is it allows you to, I have the saying, basically, it's like it allows you to behave the first time around like it was your second chance,
Hmm.
right? So in the end, the idea is that you go to bed feeling good about how you behaved and not regretting, oh, I let my anger get the best of me, or I let that moment get away from me. Sometimes it's about not reacting out of anger, but it can also be that you don't miss moments to stand up for someone.
Mhm.
And so it's not always about a reduction or in a high energy, unpleasant feeling. It can also be that you witnessed something that was not cool, right? Bullying or um, an aggression of some kind, or a racist comment or a sexist comment, and you have to decide that you're going to be an upstander and say something. And that can also be a time to take a meta moment, right? Where it's like, ooh, is it going to be weird? I don't know what's going to happen next. And it's like, no, you got to remember who you are and who you want to be,
Mhm.
and make that choice, because the same thing will happen when you get home at night. You'll say, I wish that I had said something. I wish that I had done something. So it's trying to help people avoid that. In those moments where we get activated, you take just enough time before you figure out what you're going to do to remember who you want to be.
Mhm.
And with the little kids, right, we make it real concrete. They make collages of their best self. People name their best. They want to be, Papa Smurf, and they want to be Iron Man, and they want to be Wonder Woman, and that's, and as we get older, we can be a little more abstract about it. I think that reputation piece is big. It's right when you're not in the room and your colleagues are talking about you, which they do, right? What do
Yes, they
you,
do.
they're all doing it, right? So what do you want them to be saying, And I think it helps our school leaders, because it's not that when you think about what are those goals of mine, your goals are not to win, right? Necessarily. Your goal isn't to have the last word. Your
Mm.
goal is to be a dependable leader who runs a successful school that's welcoming to families, right? These big, broad strokes. And then in that moment, when someone's coming at you, it's not about winning right now. That's not your goal as a person. And so you're able to kind of be the bigger person, or let it go, or find a way, to problem solve. Where sometimes when we get sucked in, we forget.
Mm.
Mhm.
I think I need a meta hour.
I know.
Meta moment.
Right.
I got some
They're
work.
for moments. They're for moments. Yeah, there's definitely, if you find yourself taking meta moments in the same situation all the time, or with the same person all the time, then maybe you move to broader problem solving.
Yeah.
I'm usually on the drive home and I'm like, oh, I should have said
Yeah.
that would have been more effective.
Yeah, right, now that I'm right. Well, so part of this for me comes from when I was a counselor, when I was a clinician. I saw a lot of teenagers in the afternoon after something had happened at school. And now that they were calmed down, they could tell me exactly what they should have done,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
It wasn't a knowledge problem. It wasn't that they didn't know strategies or know the behavior that would have worked out to a better outcome. They had that cognitively, but it was that in a heated moment,
Mhm.
we just forget all of that. We
Yep.
forget all of our strategies. We forget all,
Mhm.
right? So what the meta moment does is it creates that space. It doesn't need to be an hour. You'd be amazed. Just long enough that your executive functioning comes back online, and you remember what'll happen if you do that, right? And
Right.
then we make a better choice.
Mhm. I have this technique. Hopefully my husband won't listen and hear, but often when I don't agree or there's some disagreement, but I don't have my facts together or whatever, I'll just say, okay. Like I don't really like agree or disagree. I'm just like, okay with the statement. And then I walk away and I come up with, and then I'll come back to it. So, and I don't think he realizes that's my strategy yet. I think he thinks I'm agreeing and whatever, but it allows me to not pick a fight in that moment and not and also not agree with him. Like yeah.
I think that's exactly it though, right? And we can use this at home, and I think we can help kids with this too, which is, when we all benefit from taking a minute and cooling down and then coming back to the table. And so having that strategy at your disposal is huge. Yeah,
So emotions and their expressions can also have like cultural ties.
absolutely.
So how do you
Yeah.
deal with that?
Yeah, a lot of ways. The
Mm.
first thing I'll say is that ruler does not, if we go back to the recognizing emotions, right, in yourself and others, that first R of ruler, we do not teach anything specific there, right? Like that eye contact means they're paying attention or not paying attention, or eye contact means respect, or lowering your gaze means respect, or right? Because it varies by culture, right? Here we shake hands with someone when we meet them. In other countries, people bow when they meet, right? Now, if I walked up to you guys and bowed, that'd be weird here, but not somewhere else, right? And so we start by what we call we work with educators on what we call being an emotion scientist, not an emotion judge.
Mm.
Mm.
And
Mm.
part of this, so scientists ask questions, they're curious, they're open, they want to learn, right? They have a hypothesis, but they're willing to be proven wrong. Judges know, right? And they have the answer, and there's right and wrong, and right. And so we try to be emotion scientists, especially when we're interacting with our students and our colleagues about what we don't know what someone is feeling or why until we ask them and they tell us, which is why we have to help the students build a vocabulary. We can have a sense that it's generally a good, pleasant feeling or generally an unpleasant feeling from your face and your body, but we can't know for sure until we ask you. There have been large international studies trying to look for kind of universal emotion expressions, right? Happiness means that you're smiling and your eyebrows are up, and sad is that you're frowning and you're hunched over. And what they have found is that really these are not prototypes of emotions in humans. These are the stereotypes of emotions in humans, but that the variation across people is so much bigger than the consensus that that's what it's supposed to look like. And so we really have to think of people as individuals and be open to variation across culture. And our schools are becoming more and more multicultural, where educators are going to have to, at a minimum, start the year with a lot of curiosity about who they have in the room, how they express emotion, and get to know each student. And the students will have to get to know them. The other piece of this is way back at the beginning here when I was explaining ruler, I said expressing emotions, right, effectively for your context.
Mhm.
So I'll say two things here. I didn't say appropriately for your context, and I did that on purpose. We cut that word years ago because who gets to decide what's appropriate,
Right.
right? So we also have this conversation with educators a lot because they have a lot of power over their classroom and what behaviors are allowed and not allowed, and what expression of emotion is allowed and not allowed. And so we really do need to be aware of who gets to make these decisions, who gets to show that they're mad at work and who's not allowed to show that they're mad at work, who's allowed to cry, and not allowed to cry, who's allowed to raise their voice or not raise their voice without being hysterical or being scary or being too passionate or whatever it is, right? So we don't have an answer at Ruler, but we want places to engage in these conversations. Like, well, where did that come from? That, I would say in most US, I'll just hazard a guess, in most US schools, right, that when you want to participate, you raise your hand and you wait to be called on. But there are a lot of places, a lot of churches, a synagogue that I go to, where call and response is actually how you show that you're engaged and paying attention. But then kids show up at school and they try to use kind of that call and response format, and suddenly they're talking out of turn and you didn't raise your hand. And it's like, well, hold on, I was taught at home that that's how I show I'm with you, and now you're telling me that's wrong. And so that doesn't mean that schools can't, use a system of, okay, we're going to raise our hand and wait our turn, but you're going to have to potentially socialize the children to that those are the expectations before you start telling people that they're, misbehaving or labeling them as misbehaving when that's not what they were doing at all. So those are the kinds of things we try to get into. Like I said, we don't have an answer, but we try to help people be sensitive to that and be curious and be learners.
Now, what evidence supports the effectiveness of ruler and the ruler approach?
Great question. We have done
I'm trying.
prove it. Yeah. Well, first I'll say there's all this sort of theory and basic emotion science that kind of underlies what we've been talking about so far, but we have also run large scale randomized control trials of the ruler approach, right? Where you take, like 60 schools and half of them get ruler and half of them don't get ruler, and you follow them for years, these big studies with external evaluators. We just finished up one in about, I think it was like 45 or 50 elementary schools. The University of Virginia was the external evaluator, so they have no stake in saying that ruler works or doesn't, right? So it's stronger science because we created it, we love it, we already think it's great, right? So we shouldn't run the numbers and write the paper that says that it's working, right? So we try to run these large randomized trials with external evaluators. And we've done a few of those over the years, and we have more going all the time. The first big one was in 2012, and we found effects on the educators, emotional intelligence skills, their own, a self and social awareness and ability to regulate. We saw them better manage their classrooms and behaviors in their classrooms. And we saw results in the students that we were looking for in terms of engagement and classroom behavior, which of course then leads into learning and academic achievement. My colleague, Craig Bailey, Dr. Craig Bailey, he's our director of early childhood. He's wrapping up a trial in preschool, looking at both social and emotional skill, but also things like pre-literacy, pre-math, and our 3 and 4s and 5-year-olds, the number of feeling words that they know and that they use to express what's going on, which is huge for them, right? Because there's a lot of tantruming that happens when you can't say what's going on for you and no one understands, right? And so if we can give them that vocabulary, it's going to make a big difference for them. We are in year 2 of a 5-year study of our high school curriculum, looking at things like the school climate, the well-being of the educators is another one that we've looked at quite a bit. When leaders lead with emotional intelligence, where they are validating their educators' feelings, and they're doing things like, we have the faculty, right? We have the educators also build a charter. How do we want to feel at work, and how can we help each other feel that way? We see a huge impact on their wanting to come to work, intentions to stay in the profession and stay at their job. We see reduced number of mental health and stress days taken. And even things like alcohol and drug use can go down if you're in a building with a positive climate and a leader with high emotional intelligence. So we see all kinds of fabulous results.
That's great.
That's super. What kind of barriers are schools facing? What's getting in the way of them implementing ruler in their settings?
I think one is that there continues to be a misunderstanding about how social and emotional health of our educators and our students will benefit academics.
Mhm.
So people who don't spend all day thinking about this stuff, and parents in a lot of communities fear that time spent on any kind of emotional well-being is like minutes taken away from teaching academic content. And the perception is that the two are in conflict with each other, as opposed to what the reality is, which is that social and emotional health and academic achievement rise and fall together, right? And we kind of think of this like what people call like the whole child movement, right? Or, these feelings are coming in the door. Either we can give teachers the skills to manage and to move towards having focused on task learning time, or we can pretend it's not happening, but it's happening. So we might as well move towards it. But I think that that's the first barrier, is that we see resistance from either the parents or from the teachers because they think in terms of minutes. They think in terms of competing time and priorities. And the hope is actually that, 2 minutes spent at the beginning of the class on kind of making sure everyone's in the right, an emotionally helpful place to learn is going to save you time.
Mhm.
Going to save you time in the end, right? You're going to have more focused on task time, more learning, more attention, retention of the material, more engaged kids. Building a relationship with your students is huge. When they believe that you believe in them, they do better. And those couple of minutes are well worth it. But I think that's the biggest barrier that the first one, right? Is people kind of think like, I have to do another thing, and that means I'm not doing something else. So helping them see that that's not going to be the case. I'd be remiss not to say that right now there's a lot of myths flying around about social emotional learning, and entire states that are making all kinds of new laws about it. And so we do have districts that are facing thinking about how they can continue to support their students' social and emotional health, as various things are banned for reasons I don't really understand. But I think again, it comes, it comes, but I think it comes back to communication. A strategy that I have found worked really well lately is actually to start with a sports analogy, because people seem to understand why before a free throw, you would like take a deep breath and like visualize success and use positive self-talk, or why like on third down, we like take a minute and huddle, like they get that. And then I go, okay, so it's that, if that's all I'm talking about, it's that, but right before the quiz.
I was
And
actually
they're like, oh, like
Nice.
that's all done, right?
Like
That's what we're
driving,
talking about.
when I'm driving home and don't want to put gas in my car, the 5 minutes it takes to put gas in my car is so much better than the 30 minutes of waiting for AAA to come with some gas for me to get to the gas station.
Yeah,
I don't,
exactly.
that's actually what was going through my mind when you was telling that story.
Think ahead, but it's like so sometimes that works where you put it in a scenario where they kind of understand that that's what we're talking about, and now we're saying you can apply those same skills of getting myself in the right place, being focused, talking to myself, with positive statements, and then I can use that in school the same way that I was using it on the sports field, that I was using at the theater rehearsal, that I was using.
Yep.
We can do that in class. And the teachers can guide the students to do that. And we're going to see it in the students' performance.
You are dropping some huge gems here, because that basketball analogy, like I have a couple of basketball players at home, and just that analogy will, because I have one who gets really anxious right before a test time. So just saying, how you take that breath before your foul shot and you envision it going in? Like I ingrained that in both of them before they take that shot, but I never said anything about the test. So
you could do it right before, you could do it the same thing right before the quiz. And if you're partway through and it's starting to snowball and you're feeling same thing, right? That's a timeout. That's where coach timeout. We need to reset. You can do the same thing in the middle of the exam, right? If you're feeling like, I didn't know the answer to 1 and I didn't know the answer to 2 and I didn't know the answer to 3 and I'm freaking out, right? Timeout, right? Do your reset just like you would on the side of the court.
It's amazing how things become more clear when someone else tells you.
It sounds so obvious, but yeah.
Like, wow, yes. Now, you've mentioned high school, you've mentioned, preschool. Like, how does it cater to the different, like it being the same idea, but how does it cater to those different demographics?
Yeah. So obviously it's got to flow developmentally by age. So, with our preschool students, we do a lot of work with storybooks, which was happening in the classroom anyway, right? So like back to that kind of, we're not asking you to do something that you weren't doing, but as you read the storybooks, we're talking about how the characters are feeling or the decisions that the characters are making, who's friends with who and what happened, which is all in the book anyway. And we support teachers with finding the right book for the right, to kind of, or to find good books that match up with the feelings that they want to teach. I have a favorite right now, which is, I think it's called Norman Didn't Do It. Yes, he did. It's about guilt. This little guy, Norman, he's jealous because his friend has another friend, and then he does something to make the one friend go away. But then his friend is sad that their new friend is gone.
Right.
So it's about guilt, but it's just this cute little story about a hedgehog. I think it's a hedgehog and 2 trees. It's like, it's called Norman Didn't Do It. Yes, he did. And so that's how we kind of start out, right? And we start with the building blocks of things like the meta moment, where we're talking about breathing breaks. They're not picturing their best self. They don't have abstract, but they're taking breathing minutes, figuring out how to take that pause and calm their body down. And they begin our feeling words curriculum, which starts with happy, sad, angry, scared, right? Keep it simple, but let's get some words on the board. Then kindergarten through 5th grade, each year, the feeling words get a little more advanced and nuanced. So we're building their vocabulary. If you think of that mood meter with the 4 quadrants, we have 3 words from each quadrant right? So high energy, pleasant, low energy, pleasant, low energy, unpleasant, high energy, unpleasant. We have 3 from each quadrant that we've selected. So each grade, there are 12 words.
Hmm.
You with me? All right, we're gonna do a little math. So there's 12 words for each grade, K through 5. So that's 6 years, 12 words. That's 72 words that students enter 6th grade with, that they know what it means, what causes it, and how they would handle that feeling if they were having it in their way, right? That's a very different middle schooler than someone who hasn't had that content. Then starting in middle school, we move to kind of more of a themed set of lessons because the students are now, moving class to class. They're a little more, advanced. And so we talk about community, we talk about your identity, right? Who do you want to be now and in the future? We talk about motivation and setting goals, friendships and more intimate relationships. We revisit some of the feeling words. So love, I think, is in the 2nd grade content. We got to come back around to love because it's got new meanings now, right?
For sure.
We read Romeo and Juliet. Can you fall in love with somebody in a day? I don't know if that's, right? And, and even things like the Scarlet Letter, we can come back around to guilt because like guilt versus shame, right? Guilt is that you did something wrong. Shame is that there's something wrong with you, right? That's what's going on, right? And so we can continue to kind of feed those feeling words in, but now with much more nuanced look. You'll probably have noticed this theme that we have a kind of English language arts kind of thread, but the same thing can be done in social studies. We can talk about, if Abraham Lincoln was his best self,
Right.
and the decisions that somebody had to make, right? You're willing to potentially lose half the country over something you believe in. That was a big call.
Right.
Right. So we can fold this into lots of different areas. We've actually seen high school science teachers use the mood meter in science class and talk about boiling points and freezing points, right? And there is no, what's your boiling point as a person? What's your freezing point? And how do we calibrate and normalize on a Cartesian plane and all this stuff, right? So they can even fold in these tools into what they're working on.
I don't even think I know 72 feeling words.
That too. I just want to say that I was feeling a little embarrassed. I might not.
I'd be sad if my middle schooler came up with I have no idea what it means. So like, I'm glad you're feeling that way.
Yeah.
There are thousands of feeling words in English. And going back to the culturally responsive piece for a minute, and there are even more words when we expand beyond English. So we've seen a lot of classrooms do really cool stuff where they put feeling words from other languages and the students, countries of origin up on the mood meter, and they teach them to each other, right? There are words in other languages that English just doesn't have a word for. And so it's an opportunity to expand again and to learn about each other.
We do a what's that wheel called, Greg? Our wellness wheel that we have started to adapt here as part of wellness events for our staff. So I'm thinking one of these months we're going to have to do
Mood meter.
a mood meter as part of our wellness wheel activities, and maybe include some different
Feeling words. I
Yes.
think would be really cool. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, reach back out. I can share with you. We have mood meters with the words on them, ones without any of the words on them. So
I've already got the spot in mind. We have a metal door. It'd be
Awesome.
perfect. Like yep.
that's awesome.
We're gonna take that idea, Jessica, and we're gonna make it ours.
Yep.
We're not gonna give you any credit.
Do it. You know what? Our goal is to spread, emotionally intelligent practices. So take it.
So what kind of trainings do educators have to go through? Is this like really intense and they're listening and being like, I don't have time to go through all this training, or is this incorporated into multiple day? How do educators get trained?
We start by training an implementation team, a school-based implementation team. So any school that wants to adopt Ruler, they start by sending a team of 3 to 5 people usually to what we call the Ruler Institute. We hold those in person at Yale. We also have online options. In person, it's a 2-day event that teachers come to. Online, it's 6 weeks, but about 2 hours a week. 1 hour is asynchronous. There's discussion boards and videos, and the other hour is a live session with one of our ruler trainers. We started running the online ones. We actually were building it right before COVID because we wanted to be able to reach more rural communities. And then it worked out great because everything went online.
Right.
We did quite a lot of training online. And then about 18 months ago, I think we brought back our in-person ones. For larger districts, we'll actually go there and do an in-person, but it's got to be a big group that the cost makes sense to fly all our people there. But it starts by training this implementation team, and then that team's first task is to try to bring back what they've learned to the rest of the staff. We call that the adult, personal, and professional development phase. It's recommended that that's an entire academic year. So we're not asking anybody to change anything in their classroom right away. We're not asking anybody, right? There's no do now at the end of the meeting. We're going to listen and learn together. So we try to keep people open. We have a platform called Ruler Online that the implementation team has access to right away, and then they can provide access to all the adults in the building. It's got exercises, tip sheets, modules, videos, reflections, and journal prompts. There's a group mood meter plot that they can use. It's a really cool little app that's built in where you can do group mood meter plots where you kind of get a heat map of everybody in the room. People love this for staff meetings. Either at the beginning, we use it at our staff meeting, kind of gives you a sense of who walked in.
Mhm.
And then, you have to do something with the data. So if you find that everyone's super tired and your plan for today was, brainstorming, you're going to have to do something to get everybody where you need them to be, right?
Right.
But it can be helpful. Or sometimes when a leader announces a new policy or something has changed, it's a nice time to get a heat map of how's everybody feeling about that. Right. Okay. Most people are with me. We're good. Right. Or most people are feeling really anxious now. Good to know. So the adults spend about a year on their own work, right? On benefiting from practicing the skills themselves. And it gives them time to plan where will this student content go. And then we move to the student implementation the following academic year, and we offer all of the lesson plans and content on that same platform. Does that answer your question? Yeah, that's a little bit, that's
Yeah.
kind of the model. The beauty of our center is that we are, like I said, we're 37 people right now. We're about half researchers, scientists and academics who study emotion and emotion socialization and emotion, skill development. And we are about half practitioners, former teachers, former school leaders, former superintendents. And so we are able to translate the science into practice kind of in-house, right? And stay up to date. But it also means that when we write content, it's feasible, it's doable. It's not, in this ivory tower, and then schools are like, this will be impossible, right? We've got a whole bunch of people on staff who make sure that it's, they've lived it and that it's going to land for the teachers we share it with. So
That makes the whole difference.
You know who would love this?
Bridget.
Yes. We have a woman on staff who was a former 8th grade English teacher. And she does
fabulous.
mental health promotion here and
Oh,
does
that's
a lot of
great.
different trainings. And the whole time, especially when you were talking about Romeo and Juliet and all those, I was like, oh my gosh, Bridget would love this. Love this. Yes. So we'll have to get her on your website.
Yeah. For school administration that is looking to, or that may be listening and watching this podcast, how are they to get in touch with you so they could, possibly look into Ruler?
Yeah, Ruler's website is rulerapproach.org. And that site will share a little bit about what it is and the philosophy. It shares our research and links to our research site. It's got a page that explains, how to get involved in training. We also offer a emotionally intelligent leadership symposium each summer at Yale. So sometimes that's a pathway for leaders to kind of come check it out before they decide if Ruler will be right for their district. So that's for the leaders to come to. And then often after that, they decide, what, I am going to send the building-based teams through the full Ruler training. YCEI, Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence, YCEI.org is we're part of the Yale School of Medicine. So that's our kind of larger site where people can look at all of the research that we've done, all the publications, all the ongoing projects we have up and running.
I tell you, Yale is doing a lot. One of our past guests was from Yale. Playboy.
Who-
Who
Oh,
did the
yeah,
vaping and
video game.
risky,
thing.
risky video game.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
That's
Dr.
fabulous work. Lynn Filan?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
So, wow, Yale is doing great things. Keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep it up.
Thanks. We try. We're trying to be helpful. Yeah.
I've loved all the information you've shared. This has been a very informative and exciting podcast.
Yes, yes. I hope we get on board here in Rhode Island.
I want to say, I think we have a school on board
Really?
in our county.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Rhode Island. Did you say Rhode Island?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have ruler schools in Rhode Island. And actually we just did one of our leadership symposiums in Rhode Island in partnership with the Department of Ed.
Nice.
We were there like a month ago. Yeah.
Oh, nice. We met
Yeah.
one of your colleagues, I think, at breakfast, a healthy
Rhode Island
breakfast.
Healthy breakfast.
And I believe one of our schools was taking advantage of some grant opportunity or something.
Well, that's great.
So,
Yeah.
it's nice to hear.
That's great.
Well, Jessica, thank you again for all of this. This has been just a wonderful, wonderful, informative podcast. Thank you for your time, and we can't wait to see how Ruler. I'm definitely gonna be using Ruler as soon as I can in my household. So,
Yeah.
but-
Well, thank you for having me. And I know Ruler is for schools. So I should mention that our director has a book, Permission to Feel, by Mark Brackett. He's our director. And that's for everybody.
Okay.
So, yeah, and he actually has a new book coming out this fall called Dealing with Feelings. So once you have permission to feel, then you got to figure out what you're going to do with them. So book 2, Dealing with Feelings, will be coming out this
Greg
fall.
loves an
Did
exclusive.
Jessica just give us
Yeah,
an
yeah.
exclusive? Wow.
And he's got a podcast by the same name, Dealing with Feelings. And I find it super helpful personally. So even if you're not an educator, it's great. Those are kind of some of our more externally facing, just, for everybody. So
Yeah.
check them out.
Thank you very much, Jessica, for your time.
Thank you, Jessica. It was great meeting you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Great to meet you.
Okay, now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.